Welcome to the latest episode of the Literacy Lounge. Whether you're in your car, listening on your way to work or your way home from work, or whether you've got that hot drink at the end of the school day, we really do hope you're enjoying the content and finding it useful. This episode's a little bit different because we are actually appearing and on screen as well. So we are also being filmed. So hopefully that will let people see us as well as hear us. And in this particular episode, we're going to be responding to the writing framework and the curriculum and assessment review. And we're going to be exploring how pupils develop those early writing skills. It's going to be part of a two-parter, starting with those early writing skills and all those pre-writing skills as well that can be easily forgotten. And then we're going to look at how that builds into sentence level work in year 1 and year 2. And I'm joined again by Louise.
Hi,
so say hello, Louise.
Thank you for having me again.
And obviously we're on camera today, so we can see your lovely smiley face. So Louise is joining us with all of her knowledge and expertise from the early years, and also those foundational knowledge activities she's woven throughout our updated writing units. And I've had the pleasure of being on a course with Louise recently, and it was really lovely for us to talk about these things and have that passion. So what I think it's worth starting with is just chatting about this growing concern, Louise, that the young pupils are being rushed into writing a little bit too early before they're ready and they have those necessary skills. I don't know if you hear that quite a lot.
Quite a lot. And I think, there is a growing concern, isn't there, that if we rush too soon, that when they get to Key Stage 2, they've got those gaps in those foundational skills that they've not secured. And any of the latest research that you might have looked at, the writing framework, the EF, Ofsted, Stronger Foundations in the first years of school, they all kind of recommend that you don't introduce complex tasks too soon and you kind of keep it slow.
So when we're talking about those foundational skills, those basic skills that we need to put in place first, what exactly are we talking about?
So if you think about early years, they do have to go through some developmental milestones before writing, don't they? They can't just shove them in there and get them writing. First of all, they've got to have that physical development, and I'll touch on the fine and gross motor skills in a little bit more detail, but they've got to have that core strength to be able to hold that pencil and make those fine motor movements, haven't they? They've also got to have that motor memory and understanding patterns, internalising that movement and letter formation. But the final thing they've got to have is that willingness to want to write, haven't they? And that symbolic understanding that the print that they're doing is giving a message and marks mean something, don't they?
And that's why we need to value all those kind of early, what might look like scribbles to us, but that early mark making and communication. And I think we've chatted about this before. It's been really interesting in some of the year 6 moderation training we've looked at before, how they're going back to saying writing is a form of communication. And that's what we're letting children know, aren't we, at this stage?
And I think if we go back to your question around rushing too soon, when these foundations are not in place, this is where you've got pupils in perhaps year 3, year 4 that are still struggling with letter formation, or they've not grasped sentence understanding, or they don't understand some spelling patterns and rules. So it all contributes to writing, and all of the research is talking about that stronger foundations, having a really good start in early years and taking it slow and getting it right. And a lot of that it's progressive, isn't it? So I talked about gross and fine motor skills. Reception, nursery, they should be doing all of those large scale activities, the digging, the pushing, the climbing to build that core strength in their arms and the shoulders before they start focusing on letter formation. All the threading and the fine motor activities, they all come before we can pick up a pencil and start making marks, really.
And everyone's got some lovely ideas about that training that we did recently in Wrexham. We talked about people getting tyres and moving the tyres. The type of things that people pay a fortune to go and do in a gym. We've got our 4 and 5 year olds doing that to build that core strength, getting the wheelbarrow, moving things around. So there's loads of great ideas out there, aren't there?
And I think one of the key factors is that oracy, isn't it? We sometimes forget the value of oracy because we're so busy rushing. We want to get writing in books, don't we? But actually slow down and do the speaking first. They've got to be able to speak in sentences before they can write sentences. And this has got to come from daily adult modelling, hasn't it? It's got to come from those strong back and forth conversations in early years, but even from reception, that daily modelling of applying our phonics and writing simple sentences, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think hopefully the documents and the guidance you've chatted about will give teachers that confidence to be able to say, no, I'm not rushing through it. It's here. Yeah. It's there in black and white. And there's little point us rushing, because it just causes, like you said, problems further up in the school, doesn't it?
As an early years practitioner, it's kind of music to your ears, isn't it, to slow down? Like if I was in early years now and it was kind of like, let's just focus on play and oracy and letter formation and building all those foundational skills, but, you know, we'll pick up writing later on in the spring and into the summer term. It's kind of, it's going to work because you're getting those strong foundations in place, aren't you?
Because I also know, even as an adult now, I wouldn't want to do something I don't feel set up and confident in doing. So, you know, as a child, if you're asking me to do something when I know I haven't got, you know, like you said, the gross or the fine motor skills, I don't know my sounds, I don't form my letters, I'm not going to want to go and write on that piece of paper if I know that I can't.
And
can't
no,
do
I've been there before when you sat with children and you're trying to get them to do some writing, and it's painful because it's so hard for them to think of the sentence, get the sentence down, and you think, why am I doing this? Like they need to be doing something else, and then we'll build on to writing once we're ready.
It will come, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a lot of forms of child development, isn't it? You know, it will come in their own time, and that's why I think we've chatted before about even the documents now coming out about getting children ready. What is reception ready? What is school ready? And the types of things that can take place.
And that's a key Ofsted feature, isn't it? About being Key Stage 1 ready, being Key Stage 2 ready, being secondary school ready, isn't it? And it's all on those building blocks. Have high expectations, but kind of take it slow and revisit and try and avoid those gaps.
So I know that we could sit here and talk about just reception in early years all the time because we're so passionate about it, and we have got lots of other podcasts that people could go and listen to if they wanted to. But when they are ready, then what is that next step? Because a lot of people worry about that reception to year one step, but once we've got those foundations in place, what comes next?
Yeah, and I think again it's slow and steady, isn't it? You know, phonics plays a huge part in this in early years, doesn't it? That actually what I'm asking them to label and write comes from phonic sounds that they've covered, hasn't it? So you're starting with words, starting with labelling, and then slowly building on to phrases before you move on to sentences. But again, all of this has got to come from high quality oral rehearsal and practice, and it's got to come from that daily modelled sentences from the class teacher, and that, you know, that gradual release of responsibility, the I do, we do, you do approach, hasn't it?
I think that's where some people find it a bit tricky, going back to what you said about them wanting to do early labels and their phonics knowledge, because quite often they want to write more than they've got the skills for, and I think some people find it tricky and a fine balance of, do you let them have a go, or do you just ask them to write words that you know they can do? And I suppose it depends what the task is and where it's taking place, doesn't it?
And you've always got some children that just want to write, and it's really hard, isn't it, to kind of like bring them back and slow them down. But you know, one of the key things moving into year one is that they've got that accuracy in what a sentence is. A sentence is one idea about one thing, and it's what they're being or doing, isn't it?
Yes.
So that when they're building those sentences, as they build up on those steps, they really understand what a sentence is.
Yeah, and I think going even back from that, you know, you've got to understand a word, don't you? And you said about putting your phonics into a word, then into a phrase. So in that phrase, we've got no verb, so it might just be like big fish. And then, like you said, building into that sentence that I want to say something about that big fish. Because, again, that's really, really hard, isn't it? How do you explain a noun, a verb and a sentence to, you know, a six-year-old?
They just want to write. And what's really hard there, their oracy is at a higher level than what they can write, so it's really hard to kind of put what you're saying into what makes sense in a sentence, isn't it?
And I know early intervention's really important as well, and we've got all the inclusion elements of the Ofsted toolkit, and that's why we've been working on the Pathways to Progress intervention, haven't we, for year one and year two. And we've really had to think about that, haven't we? How do we, if a child's struggling with understanding a concept of a sentence, how do we break that down for them? And we have gone back, haven't we, to pictorial aspects that talk about the sentence, talk about that. Tell me one thing about, I'm stuck on fish, I'm going to keep talking about fish, but tell me one thing about that fish. And then you can extend it, like you said, that back and forth conversation.
And it's that repetition, isn't it, of repeated tasks, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then there's a big change, isn't there, moving into year one, and we've mentioned year two as well. And once year one is secure with that understanding of what a sentence is, it's then introducing and, isn't it? Where
Yes.
it can go right or it can go very wrong, can't it?
Yeah, you can get too many ands. And I think, again, we've been careful to break that down. And we've made even more changes to pathways to write in year one recently, haven't we? That really securing and between those two words first.
Yeah.
So you've still got your simple sentence. You've just got your and between two words. Now you might be talking about a fish and a dog.
Yeah.
Randomly. But you might be talking about two things like that. And then when they've understood that, then understanding that your two sentences can go together.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this with my hands because we do that. We model it, don't we? We get out the sentence strips. We chop up our sentences. I think anything that you can do practically,
I think it's
really
the best way
support.
to learn, isn't it? And you've mentioned our adaptations that we've made to Pathways to Write. We've really tried to put in that gradual release, haven't we, where the teachers modelling, they might do a little bit of collaboration before they get to that independence, but going right back to let's get the sentence strips out, let's build two main clauses, let's use and let's kind of join them together so that they understand the purpose of it and what they're doing.
They absolutely understand that I can have these two ideas now about one thing and I can put them together into one sentence.
What's really common, as you said, in year one is that they do and, isn't it?
Yeah, all over the place. And then you can get the punctuation to unpick. But I suppose when we've got these misconceptions, it goes back to making sure we've got those strong foundations initially. And you mentioned repetition. And I think something that I really like about some of the units as well is that use of list sentences as well. Let's just keep writing the cat, or I, so that they can just practice with that safety net, really, I think.
And what we've really tried to do with year one is to keep it to an understanding of a sentence. We know often like lots of other conjunctions and punctuation can be thrown in, but we want them to really get the accuracy in a sentence and then build that awareness of a question sentence and build that awareness of using an exclamation mark in preparation for year two, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that some of this comes down to subject knowledge as well. And also I know, having taught year one, you've already said about children come up with more orally than they can write, and they want to be putting lots of more complex things in, but they haven't got those skills yet. And as a teacher, to strip it back can feel a bit funny, can't it? You don't want to stunt the child, and you also don't just want eventually just to have a book of loads of list sentences. So, but it's again, when can we build it in? So as you said, we start off with and that's really what we want by the end of year one, isn't it?
A happy year two teacher if they came up.
Understand it. Yeah, they understand a sentence. They understand the punctuation around a sentence,
letters and full stops,
and they can start to use and, because we pick up on and again in year two, don't we?
Absolutely.
And then we develop it further, don't we?
Yeah, and year two it's a lot of revision in year two, but again, the way the curriculum is at the minute, there's a big jump from the expectation at the end of year one to the expectation at the end of year two, isn't there? Lots of other things are thrown in there to kind of pad out your sentences, isn't it?
Yes, there is a lot of content in year two, and when we used to have the moderation and the teacher assessment framework, there were certain of those things you didn't need them to be an expected standard, but you definitely needed to be secure with your coordination and use some subordination. So I suppose because it's probably the easiest one to start using, but children really understanding why we use because.
So again, going back to sentence strips, a lot of practical introduction to it and playing around with it rather than just showing it in a model piece of writing.
Yeah, and that's where we need to be careful again that we're not feature spotting and thinking, they've used it because, and then when you read it, it doesn't actually make sense. So the other key thing I think that we add then in year two, so we add in the subordination, we really secure coordination. We then add in more detail, don't we? Yeah. So we start to develop that expanded noun phrases. So we're not just saying a fish, we're saying a rainbow coloured fish.
Getting that description in. And I think you'd hope in the year two that they're reading a bit wider now, aren't they? They're moving away from that phonics programme and the phonetically decodable books, so they're coming across more vocabulary and language to put into their writing, aren't they? So they're ready to kind of extend on those simple sentences.
Yes, and then we need to refine tense as well. That's another key thing in year two. I realise as we're saying this, there's loads of key things in year two. But that's where we can consolidate tense, because I suppose we're going away from just list sentences. Yeah. And in year one, we've written a series of sentences, haven't we? But a really short. It doesn't have to be a lot, does it? We might be writing longer pieces in year two.
And I think it's they're beginning to build up some stamina now for writing, aren't they? We know what a sentence is, and we're adding some description. Now we're building up that stamina as we then introduce other punctuation to them, don't we?
And we're adding maybe writing for those different purposes a little bit more, because they've had 2 years in school of a lot of stories and that. So as we're chatting about it, it makes it sound so easy, doesn't it? But we know it's not easy. So where do we get stuck then?
So, they can get stuck on various places, can't they? And it's that cognitive overload, isn't it? We've got all these things to think about now. We've learnt lots in the first kind of 2 years at school, isn't it? It's kind of, but we need to put all those things together for writing. So some children can get stuck on putting their ideas on paper in the first place. You can have that group of children that, you've done all the best modelled writing, you've done an input, you've got working walls, and they're still kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And they just can't think of those initial ideas.
But that's where your gradual release really comes in again, because if you have done it in small steps, it's not, here's my model, off you go and do yours, which... Again, I'll hold my hands up. Yeah. I've done, I used to do that with my great big long model. Right, go and do yours now. So that gradual release means that they can have a little bit of a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a safety net, isn't it? A little bit of a go on the carpet with you. You can have a look, maybe with a friend, before they go and do theirs.
Yeah, they need lots of time for oral rehearsal, like that pair share talking, listening to other people's ideas as well. Sometimes that collaboration works really well, doesn't it? I'll listen to someone else and then I'll pinch those ideas, but they need that time to think and plan, don't they?
So I think something we've talked about a lot here is time, giving over that time before the writing, and like you've said before, that children are going to start writing a bit more, so it can be difficult for them to know how to structure it if they haven't got those initial foundations.
Yeah, because that's another area, isn't it? You could have some children that have got great ideas and that orally they come up with lots, but then they don't know how to kind of construct that into a sentence, do they? They don't know how to put that into something that actually makes sense. And again, they need lots of modelled writing, don't they? They need time for rereading and checking that it makes sense, that they've got the capital letter in the right place, they've got finger spaces, got that full stop. That's that constructing of a sentence, isn't it?
So by the time they then come and do what we might say is their finished or final piece, they've had all that practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where our mastery approach works, isn't it? Let's keep practicing these so that by the time you come and put it together, you've kind of done it. It's about piecing it.
And reading comes alongside quite a lot. They need to see it, don't they? They need to see lots of sentences. I suppose the other big one where they get stuck is application of phonics, isn't it? And that spelling, that kind of can become a significant weakness, but it's using the grapheme charts, isn't it, giving them that best bet, which is which one looks right, and
knowing that phonetically plausible is okay. We're not expecting everything to be perfect. It's that phonetically plausible attempt and letting them know that really. So what can we do? Have you got any kind of, I know that we've talked that we've put things into Pathways to Progress to help plug those gaps, to help children keep up if they're starting to fall behind. But what kind of things are we talking about that could support everyone?
Like early identifying the need is essential, and that's again something that Ofsted is saying, isn't it? That you identify what the need is and you quickly put things in place. So identifying what the issue is with writing. If you're fortunate to have TAs, they're your most valuable resource to start off with in the classroom, aren't they? Thinking about actually how am I utilising that adult? Who are they sitting with in the input? Who are they supporting for the group task? Are they pulling children out for any additional interventions? They're your biggest support. But for teaching wise, it's your scaffolds, isn't it? When you're planning that unit of work, you've got to think about those children that are struggling. What adaptations do I need to make? Do I need to simplify the outcome that I'm asking them to do? Do I need to put some scaffolds in place? And, very often in Key Stage 1, it can be a case of actually, instead of asking them to just write, we're going to give them like 4 pictures and they'll write a sentence about each picture, because it just helps. I mean, it helps everyone, to be honest, doesn't it? It helps to kind of structure it. Do they need a sentence starter? So it might be that we're giving them a sentence starter and they can finish that.
Or a word bank. A word bank to help them pull from. I think there's a lot, isn't there, that is essential for some children, but it's not going to harm everyone if it's there. That's the whole idea of a scaffold. Like I've said probably on many podcasts, it's those stabilisers and you having that plan of how you're going to release that again.
And what's
children.
important is that the lesson is adapted to meet the needs of those children. And, I've seen over the years in books where I've looked at the lowest ability child and they've done a great piece of writing, but that's come from lots of modelled writing and perhaps copywriting, and they're not ready to kind of use the objective that's been given. So it's kind of bringing it back to where they need.
So they can be successful. We want them to be successful, and we want them to be able to work independently as well, which goes back to your chat about routine. So list sentences. If you've taught them how to use a word bank, well, let's do it every lesson. Don't keep changing it up and think, well, right, tomorrow then we'll do a closed procedure and the next day I'll give you a sentence starter. Give them those things that they can pick up and use and build that independence.
And I think some of the tasks and activities we mentioned before, we've got a great foundational skills booklet, haven't we, that's got lots of ideas to use from, but it's got some games that, heads and tails, isn't it? You have two parts of sentences and you put them back together, cut up sentences and putting them back in the right order. It really depends what it is they're struggling on, isn't it?
And what your focus is, I suppose, because if you're doing the heads and tails, then you're taking away that composition from them, aren't you? And they can just focus on building a sentence with the words you've given them.
Absolutely. If they're struggling with the letter formation, it's kind of going back to, actually, do we need to do more fine motor activities and gross motor activities? If they're struggling with the spelling, how can we help them with some keep up kind of phonics? But ultimately, it's, there's got to be lots of praise, hasn't there? And, take it.
Sorry, and I think that's where, again, the early identification and targeted support, so it's short, sharp, and they can achieve in it. And then that child then might need to work on their spelling, but they've got that confidence, like you said, that praise. They know they've been successful because now they can put words in order.
Yeah. And I think we kind of said this a lot about taking it slow. Sometimes it does feel like a rush when you've done a piece of writing, we're moving on to the next day, but they need time to actually, let's read what we wrote yesterday. Let's
celebrate
check it. If we need to make any changes to it, we can do it as verbal feedback, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's loads of ideas that we can put in place.
Well, like you said, we have already created some documents. So I think we shared that with a lot of Pathways to Write customers, particularly from the Pathways platform. But people can just get in touch if they want to see some of these ideas as well. So there is loads and loads really that we could talk about. But if we wanted to think about the exact what do we want them to be leaving Key Stage 1 in place, ready for Key Stage 2, what would we say those are again?
Well, I think as a Year 3 teacher, you'd want those. It's securing the foundations. All the things that we've talked about, you want to secure those foundations. Ultimately, you want a well-sequenced Key Stage 1 curriculum that prepares them for Key Stage 2, don't you? Yeah. So the things that we've mentioned, it's mastering those building blocks, isn't it, for writing? So handwriting, we would want that. Letter formation in place. Hopefully they'll move on to cursive handwriting. Because they'll have to build that
stamina, won't they, throughout Year 3 onwards.
Definitely understanding of what a sentence is. You don't want to be coming to Year 3, you're going to struggle then if you come into Year 3 and you're not got that knowledge and grasp of how to construct a sentence and put a sentence together. I'd want that understanding of the basic punctuation that's been taught in Year 2 and that use of more complex sentences and using those conjunctions. I mean, a lot of Year 3 in the autumn term is revisiting, isn't it? But for a good standing, they need that sequence curriculum, don't they, with all of those building blocks in place. And confidence, really, you want them to kind of have that level of independence, don't you, moving into Year 3 now? It's a big jump, isn't it, Year 2 to 3?
And I think it is, but I think you don't want Year 3 teachers to have to keep going on about capital letters and full stops. And maybe if we can confidently say, no, they've got that in place. And if they're forgetting them, it hits your proofreading then, doesn't it? Well, I'm going to pick up on that with Lynn in part 2 of this, because we're going to then talk about the next stages of sentence development. So it'll be interesting to see what Lynn says from that perspective of what a Year 3 teacher wants. Was there anything else that you kind of wanted to say, or have you got I think master the basics, isn't it? Keep going over those foundational skills, and that fluency in writing will come later. Master the building blocks. Master the building blocks. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us. You've given us some great tips, and I think you'd said to me your top tip would be don't rush too soon.
Yeah.
Master the basics and then build up fluency in writing.
Perfect.
So, and thank you everyone to listening
Thank you.
and watching. And you can have a sip of your tea now, Louise.